XFL power rankings by our own Mike Mitchell, the league's best to worst. We'll get right into it. Number 1, your Week 6 power rankings. America's team, the undefeated, undisputed champions of the North. Well, I mean, hey, we're only halfway through the season. DC Defenders, they are number 1. Clearly, they just ran all over the St. Louis Battlehawks on front of a raucous crowd of 35,000 at the Dome. In St. Louis, Abram Smith, the former Baylor standout, ran all over the place, and that's why they made him the number 1 overall pick, and they took it to St. Louis, even though St. Louis kind of still in it. I mean, it wasn't like a super blowout, but they're at number 1. Number 2, the Battlehawks at 3-2. Placing the St. Louis Battlehawks second could stir some controversy and potentially age poorly. However, when you consider that St. Louis's only 2 losses have come to the league's top team, DC, and the overwhelming strength of the North over the South, it's not crazy as one would think. The Battlehawks, as they have done all season, battled back down multiple scores, nearly rallied to push DC into overtime, but they couldn't overcome all the damage they encountered during Saturday night's game. St. Louis failed to exact sweet revenge on DC, a team that looks 2 steps ahead of them and everyone else right now. So that's why he moved them up. Now, all of a sudden, the Battlehawks are in a precarious position at the halfway point. Anthony Beck's bunch went from potentially taking over the North to now fighting for their playoff lives. St. Louis is tied with Seattle for the second and final playoff spot in the division. The saving grace is that they own a victory over the Dragons early in the season. Battlehawks have 2 straight road games on the horizon. Week 6, they head to Vegas to face the Vipers before battling Houston in Week 7, and then St. Louis comes home and plays the Vipers again. The 2 upcoming divisional games are pivotal for the Battlehawks' playoff chances because of potential tiebreakers at the end of the season. Seattle Sea Dragons are now at 3. At 3-2, the league's most enigmatic team lands in the 3rd spot. Enigmatic team. The Dragons could either be 5-0 or 0-5 at this point, but as frustrating as their near losses at home to Houston last Thursday night, the fact of the matter is that they are beating the previously unbeaten Roughnecks. Seattle has showed that they are a legit threat to win it all if they can just figure out a way to stop beating themselves. Talking about Ben DiNucci's turning over the ball, for example. But they have some MVPs. Houston Roughnecks are at number 4. On the surface, it seems foolhardy to drop a team with only 1 loss down 4 spots. After all, a week from now, Houston could be back on the top of the rankings if they beat DC. But if they lose to DC, then, this doesn't seem so crazy after all. However, the quality of opponent now comes into question for the Roughnecks after their lackluster performance against Seattle in Week 5. Houston has 2 victories over the winless Guardians and 1-score wins over 2 struggling South teams in Arlington and San Antonio. So basically, it's a numbers where you haven't really beaten anybody yet, and the best team that you took on was Seattle, and they beat you. Number 5, Arlington Renegades at 3-2, kind of the disappointing teams. It's the reason why they kept them in every game this season. Their defense and special teams has, and that's why they're 3-2 versus 0-5. It's because of their offense among being the worst in the league, if not the worst. Fortunately for them, on Sunday night in San Antonio, they faced a team with similar DNA, netting a 12-10 victory. It wasn't super exciting, but they did get the win. Renegades will see the Brahmas next week again. They're doing back-to-back Sunday afternoon on ABC. So maybe things could change a little bit, but they will be at home and not in San Antonio. We'll see how this goes. So unless the XFL changes their playoff format, the Renegades are going to be a playoff team because Orlando and San Antonio are in their division. Number 6, San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4. Tempting to slide San Antonio to 7 this week, but once again, their defense and special teams plays fantastic. The Brahmas had a chance to win because of those 2 units. However, despite head coaching Hines Ward making a change at offensive coordinator, it didn't help much. What made matters worse is that the Brahmas lost new starting QB Reed Sinnott to what looks like potentially a season-ending injury. We haven't heard anything left. San Antonio is on life support. A loss in Week 6 to Arlington again will for all intents and purposes, seal their fate in 2023. It's gotten late really early for the Brahmas. Number 7, Vegas Vipers. They're off the schneid, 1-4. Woodson's team finally gets their W. Players get their first win bonus, $1,000 per player. But then when you take Texas, taxes out of it, it's like $500. Maybe that's different. Texas, you take the dub, however you can get it. But we don't know is how it would classify the Vipers' victory in Week 5 as well. Earned, I mean, they both gave up a ton of points. Lots of scoring, 67 combined points. The winless bowl lived up to its reputation of both Vegas and Orlando. Both teams went through a comedy of errors on late Saturday night. It's fitting that the game ended at the 1-yard line with 2 false starts as the finish, but it was sloppy. But they did come away with the win, and of course, they are who we thought they are. Orlando Guardians are at 8. Mike Mitchell's preseason projection of Orlando going winless for the season stays intact. To their credit, the Guardians put up a fight Saturday night with their 35-32 loss to the previous winless Vegas Vipers. Could they have a guy in Quentin Dormandy to help their team going? We'll have to find out. But they have a decent. The Guardians have one of the league's best receiving cores, much better than San Antonio or Arlington, for example. But will they continue to have poor coaching and discipline? It wouldn't be an Orlando game without them making questionable decisions and committing penalties. So we'll have to kind of find out there. So we got it. Number 8, Orlando Guardians at 0-5. Number 7, Vegas Vipers at 1-4. 6, San Antonio Brahmas at 1-4. Arlington Renegades at 3-2. At number 5, Houston Roughnecks at 4-1. This could change if the Roughnecks lose this week to DC. This whole thing, but if they win, that changes a lot of things. Number 3, Seattle Sea Dragons at 3-2. Number 2, the St. Louis Battlehawks at 3-2, and of course, number 1, America's team, your team, and my team, the DC Defenders. So let us know what you think about this week's power ranking, Mike Mitchell power ranking, in the comments.